got a lot of business stuff going on today. Right now, I'm sort of working on laying the foundation for launching the business. I'm doing all the prep work. I'm trying to establish at least a little bit of a social media presence before launch. I didn't want to just like open my shop randomly and just start talking about it randomly. I wanted to sort of prime a space on Instagram specifically for me to do the majority of my social media marketing, because that's my main angle right now, at least for marketing in terms of my business plan, is social media marketing, specifically targeting Instagram and Pinterest, which is going to be interesting for me because I do know a little bit about Instagram, but I don't know a ton about Pinterest and how that works. But I feel like the type of stuff that I'm doing fits really well on Pinterest, and so it's definitely worth it for me to learn that platform and learn how to market my stuff on that platform. So I've reserved a bunch of social media handles, not every single one, but definitely the ones that I think I either am definitely gonna use or may use in the future. But yeah, speaking of Instagram, I've spent not most of the morning, but part of the morning making this week's Instagram posts, basically. I will show you a little sneak peek of what I've got going on in terms of my content planning. Something I've definitely talked about on this channel before is struggling to find a system of organization for me. I've tried Notion, I've tried planner journals, I've tried goal setting journals, I've tried bullet journals, I've tried Asana, Trello, like basically everything. It's been difficult for me to find something that works consistently, and the only thing that's ever worked for me consistently is this like calendar plus notes app on my Mac, which was how I just like stayed organized in college. And so I'm giving that a try again, and I'm giving calendar blocking a try. So this right here is my Instagram plan for the month of January. I just sort of went around and made a bunch of posts almost every day, like minus a few. I still need to plan out some of this week. I've just filled in all of the initial promotional stuff I want to do for my launch day on February 1st. But what makes this nice is all of it is under one calendar, so I can turn it on and off as I need to, along with all the rest of my stuff. So if I have all of this on, my calendar is very chaotic, but it lets me see everything that I'm doing, and that lets me then plan out my weeks, including my personal stuff, including the business, including any birthdays that are coming up, including YouTube stuff. So like I can have literally everything in one place. So far, I'm liking it. The main thing I have going on this week is going to be continuing to finish my sample products. So that's a big sooner rather than later priority, is finishing at least one of every single item that I'm going to be offering for sale, because I need those things in order to take product photography, which I need in order to make the listings. So that I think is my main priority. I would like to get the 2 other baskets that I need done. So I'm going to have 3 different sizes. They're all the same pattern, just different sizes. I've made the small one, but I need to make the medium and the large one. And I'd also like to finish one of the blankets that I have in progress. That one may be the lowest priority because I do need some more yarn for that color specifically. But that is priority number 1. Priority number 2 is staying consistent on Instagram, making that happen, getting my presence out there. That way I have the whole month to sort of build a catalog of posts leading up to launch, so it's not just like out of the blue. Priority number 3 is to start working on my website. So I'm gonna be doing that through Shopify, and I've set up my account, I've started messing around with it, but I need to learn a lot about that site. And so I'm gonna start diving into that, watching some tutorial videos, figuring out what I want that to look like and feel like, so that in the coming weeks I can actually build that out and get that all settled. That's gonna be the lowest priority for now though, because I have time to build that out, and that's something that I can like take with me and do elsewhere, whereas the crochet stuff is more something that I have to do here. Not have to, it's just annoying to lug around a bunch of yarn everywhere. like talk about this business plan that I have, I kind of wanted to sit down and show you a little bit about it and also sort of explain how I arrived to these places. I'm not gonna share the whole thing because some of it involves goals that I'm still sort of sorting out in terms of what I want them to say, pricing, which I'm still sort of, again, sorting out. But I wanted to go over my journey from deciding I'm starting this business to where I am now with the plan that I have in place. So originally, like I mentioned, I sort of just had the idea that I wanted to do something handmade that I could sell online and at craft fairs. And originally, the way that I was going to do this was with knitting stuff. I just didn't know what exactly. My first desire was to do blankets, which I started a few, and it very quickly became something that was taking a lot of time and a lot of yarn, more than I anticipated. I started sort of extrapolating out, okay, this is how far into this blanket I've gotten in 5 hours. How many hours is it gonna take me to finish this blanket? How much yarn is that gonna take me? And then from there, what am I gonna have to charge in order for that to be reasonable and sustainable? And that number just became something that I wasn't really comfortable with, partly because it just wasn't what I was expecting, and partly because I feel like I sometimes struggle valuing my work accurately. This was a problem with my freelance work a bit. I obviously started out on Fiverr, priced really low with the intent to gain reviews, but when I got to the point of pricing myself fairly, I just found it really hard to do that. Or whenever I received a book that I was working on, I sort of ended up going above and beyond what I promised in the gig, just because I got so into the editing that I just wanted to say everything that I wanted to say, even if it took me a lot longer than my calculated hourly rate was supposed to be. In terms of knitting, I pivoted away from larger, more expensive items pretty quickly, just because money makes me uncomfortable sometimes. But I also didn't want to undervalue my work. If I was gonna do this, I wanted to build something sustainable that I wasn't just like giving away items for basically free. I pivoted into smaller, more manageable things that I could price a lot lower because they take up a lot less yarn and a lot less time. So I made a bunch of baby bonnets. I was like, I can make baby bonnets and little baby beanies and mittens and little booty sock knit things, and then maybe some baby blankets as well. And that's how I can throw in the blankets, is that can be the larger, more expensive item out of my line. And I started making my business plan with that in mind. But again, that was something that after I started getting into it and trying out different things, this is why it's important to try the thing that you're trying to build a business around, obviously. I just realized it wasn't really the right combination of my interests. I don't have a baby. Why am I making baby stuff? This is also sort of where I started to realize that knitting wasn't working for me as well either, because I never really learned how to knit continental, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically like you're holding your knitting needles and then around your left, or if you're right-handed, around your left pointer finger, you have the yarn that's attached to the rest of the yarn that you're using. And you sort of end up just doing this with your wrists to curl it around this other needle. So it's very wrist heavy, if that makes sense. However, I was knitting, I don't know what the term for it is, but the way where I'm holding the yarn in this hand, loop the yarn, loop the stitch, and then bring the stitch out. And so it's a very like shoulder heavy movement, if that makes sense. And so my shoulder was starting to hurt a lot. And I was like, if I'm gonna be knitting every single day, obviously, you know, you get used to it and you build the muscle and all that, but I was like, this is not gonna work for me. And so I started to pivot over to crochet, which again is much more wrist involved rather than shoulder, at least for the way that I knit. And my next sort of exploration in terms of what I wanted to build this business around was bookmarks. This perfectly combines my love of reading with my love of handmade. And I did really enjoy making them. I feel like that could have been, you know, a solid thing to like continue on with, but there was still sort of just something drawing me back to blankets more specifically, but also just like home decor things in general. By this time, I'd made enough stuff and done enough calculations that I was sort of getting used to the idea of, all right, this is my hourly rate for this and it is what it is. Like, handmade things take time, and I just need to accept that that is what people are paying for, is the fact that they know the person that it's made by, or at least the fact that they know that it's made by a person and not a machine or someone whose labor is being exploited. So I was like, okay, I'll try blankets again. I will try, you know, some other home decor stuff, because that's, I think, where my interests really lie, and I just need to make that work for me rather than me trying to do something else that I think is the better business idea, if that makes sense. I tried some different blankets with different size hooks and different yarn stuff, and I just really loved doing it. And I was like, this is what I need to do. So I just need to make a strategy and a business fit around this, even if it's not the initial, like, maybe like bubbly, quirky vibe that I was initially had in my head as like sort of the branding of a handmade business. I need to build my brand around what I'm actually doing, not the other way around. And so that's sort of what leads me into what I've got going on my business plan right now. Is this went through so many drafts. Like, with every single one of those things that I was trying, I was doing a different business plan, if not multiple, because I was trying different things out to see kind of what would stick in both the practical sense and also the emotional sense, and what I could see myself doing and investing all of this time in. I also just sort of Googled how to write a business plan. Literally, like, I didn't go to business school. Like, I didn't know what half these words were. I just sort of had to research, okay, how do I do this? And there's a lot of information on the internet about like where to start and where to go from there. Like, at least just the bare bones basic. I feel like there's definitely more stuff I could be doing. There's probably places where I could be going more in depth, but this is a good foundation point for me. And it's also a good place, like, business plans are typically, I feel like, used to communicate things about your business to someone else, whereas in this case, this is just me communicating it to myself, trying to figure out what direction I'm going in. So the first part that really sort of drove the rest of my decisions elsewhere was sort of just like the vision statement. With the type of products that I'm making, I really want them to be super cozy, homey, comfortable, like the type of like blanket, for example. I keep pulling on blankets. I'm gonna be doing blankets, baskets, and pillowcases, but like the type of stuff that you just want to cuddle up with, if that makes sense, or like just makes you feel super at home, while at the same time being a bit more of an elevated take, or like a sophisticated take on handmade goods. I wanted this at least to be something that you would genuinely want like on display on your home. The type of thing that like people come over and they're like, oh, I love this, where did you get it? Like, that's the vibe I'm going for. I wanted that vibe also reflected in the sales experience, the packaging, all of that sort of stuff is sort of what I'm going for in terms of the vibe. With that, I learned what a SWOT analysis was, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Yes. And this is just sort of like evaluating the different places where you're gonna stand out as a business, or the places that you're gonna need to be aware of or fix. So this is just like my little SWOT analysis. Again, who knows if this is as in-depth as it could be, but this has just sort of helped me wrap my brain around the things that I needed to be aware of. And then also, again, some elements of like branding and market placement. I found this very helpful to sort of wrap my brain around how I was going to make my business stand out compared to all the other handmade businesses out there, but also against like stuff that you can buy from Target or whatever, which is another big reason I shifted to crochet. Is in this process of figuring out what I wanted to do, I learned that crochet is actually just like guaranteed handmade. Like, anything you find that is crocheted was made by a person, because the stitches are just complicated enough that machines haven't been able to replicate it yet. A lot of the reason you can find knit stuff for really cheap in store is because they can be made by a machine. And so that's not to say that people who do handmade knitwear are somehow making a less valuable product. No, that's absolutely not the case, because their time is just as valuable as any other handmade goods person. But what I liked about crochet other than just the fact that it worked better for my body, is that it came sort of with a built-in specialness to it in terms of just the nature of what it is. And so that was something I knew I could use in sort of my marketing angles, is that like, it's crochet, so you know that I made it with my own 2 hands. Thank you for joining me as I start working on this. I'm very excited. For those of you who were only here for the writing content, that's definitely going to be put on pause until at least February, but you will be definitely knowing what I'm working on because it's this all day, every day, all the time. So for now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!